living someone else's life. It's like I just stepped outside when everything was going right. And I know just why you could not come along with me. This was not your dream, but you always believed in me. Another winter day has come and gone away in either Paris or Rome, and I wanna go home. Let me go home. And I'm surrounded by a million people. I still feel alone, and let me go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. Let me go home. I've had my run, baby, I'm done. I gotta go home. Let me go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home.
He was supposed to be in SA last year for a tour, in fact, promoting his new album, The Best of Bublé, which is a compilation of all of his hits. It's about a 21-track album, if I'm not mistaken, and also comprises of 2 new tracks. That tour in 2024 was rescheduled, cancelled last year, and was rescheduled for 2025. So we wait to see whether or not Michael Bublé will be coming back to South Africa. He's been here before. I had the fortunate occasion of going to that concert at the Dome. And I say this all the time with the greatest sort of love and endearment for him, as well as John Legend, that they've been the 2 musicians that have ensured when they go on world tours, they make a stop in South Africa and appreciate their fans here. And when they come here, they really give it their all. Oh, they're so entertaining and so engaged. And you know, South African crowds are unique. If you watch concerts in Europe and other places, especially intimate shows, people will always tell you South African crowds are unique because we're interactive. We want to sing with you. We want to tell you what to sing next. And Michael Bublé is definitely one of those who goes with the flow and he adjusts on stage and he's so responsive to his audiences. This particular song, Home, though, is an incredible one, released in 2005, and it was the second single released from his album It's Time, which came out the same year. It went on to be the first of his singles released in the United Kingdom and the first of that territory to hit the Billboard charts as well. That is how we kick off the show this afternoon, with a little something from one of the greatest crooners to ever do it, Michael Bublé, coming through with Home. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. Shifting the dial just a little bit this afternoon from all of the headline-grabbing news that's happening in and around the country. Of course, we know that this morning, uDuduzile Zuma Sambula made a return to court, made that appearance and was supported by members of the MK. That case, clearly is going to have everybody hooked to their screens and to hanging on to every word that comes out of there. There's a lot of interest there, both just from us as normal citizens, but also, I guess, politically, because already people are already coming out with all the theories about how she is being politically weaponized to prove a point. So that's definitely going to be center of dinner conversations for the next couple of weeks to come. Also some developments, obviously, overnight. A lot of people who are on social media trying to find the lighter side of what's unfolding between South Africa right now and, of course, Rwanda at the moment, with President Cyril Ramaphosa and Paul Kagame busy going back and forth on X overnight. We'll see how that sort of unpans. We woke up to them trending on Twitter, people saying, Who knew that we'd live in a time when two presidents are engaged in a toit? They seem to be communicating via social media outside of the normal channels. But it is the world that we live in, right? It is the world that we live in. Like I said, from our end, we are shifting the dial just a little bit, helping you cool off for the remainder of the afternoon, or for the next couple of hours at very least. And we're unpacking the dynamics of toxic mother-child relationships today. And this conversation, I think we're jumping into also because of something that we observed over the last couple of days, with actress Brenda Ngoli taking to social media with that very disturbing video exposing an exchange between herself and her mother. Seems to have been some tensions there in recent years. We're not privy to the full story from either lady, but we do have just the snippet of what we all saw, or what the majority of us saw on social media. And there's been some great discourse around the dynamics of those mother-daughter relationships, and we thought we'd have that conversation today. Also coming up today, stages, pages, screens, and more as we delve into the artistic and cultural side of life. On the other side of 2 o'clock, because it's Thursday, we're bringing you a legal guide conversation. And are you thinking of perhaps changing your marriage contract from in community of property to an anti-nuptial? Or, here's a flip on the conversation we had last week with the king and all of those developments. Are you considering dissolving your civil marriage in order to make room for a more traditional matrimony? So we're going to have that conversation on the other side of 2061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can send through your WhatsApp voice notes, or 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on.
Outsurance has another random fact for you. In 1998, a kid's 20 Rand pocket money meant a shopping spree at the school tuck shop. Now, they need about 70 Rand. The cost of living has gone up, but Outsurance is still committed to giving you big savings on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754 to switch and save today. Let's hear what real Outsurance clients have to say.
When you deal with Outsurance, it is effortless. They treated us like human beings.
With Outsurance, you always get something out. Outsurance has paid out more than 6 billion Rand in out bonuses. That's more than any other insurer.
With Outsurance, when you look at it, it sounds too good to be true, but it's good. It's true.
SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes.
Listening to the
That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right, as we get into our conversation this afternoon, we are catching up with counseling psychologist Nthabiseng Muketsi, and we're trying to understand and unpack the dynamics behind the toxic relationships that sometimes unfold between a mother and a child. And we know that a toxic mother-child relationship can leave very deep emotional scars affecting one's self-esteem, one's mental health, and your overall well-being, really. And there's a few things perhaps that we can place on the table here, and questions such as, is a mother wound even more deeper than a father wound at times, or it just depends on the dynamics that are at play and the situation that's unfolding. And we enter this conversation because, of course, for the last couple of days, if you are on social media, you know that a lot of people have been preoccupied outside of the political conversation. A lot of people have been preoccupied with unpacking the dynamics between South African multi-award winning actress Brenda Ngoli and her mother. Brenda shared a video of her mother with us. We just elected not to play the audio of that video, but she shared a video on social media of an exchange between herself and her mother, and it was a very heated, very toxic, very threatening exchange between the two ladies. And previously, in previous conversations on podcasts and very popular podcasts, she had shared even deeper sort of details around the fracture and the toxicity of that particular relationship, and of course how it ultimately impacted her and her daughter. And so we thought we'd have this conversation today because on Thursdays and on Wednesdays we tend to unpack personal relationships, and Thabi Singh has graciously given us her time. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, let's sort of, I don't even know where we entered this conversation, right? Because it's such a complex one when you look at the dynamics between child and parent, and particularly in this case, we're talking an adult child and their parent.
Yeah, it's a complex relationship, and more than that, it is multi-layered. So you can't think it's one thing that is happening. It may be other things that you are not aware of that are actually in play that are causing people to actually fight with each other. So a mother-daughter relationship or a mother-child relationship is quite complex because it cuts deeper than any other relationship that can ever have.
And why is that so? I mean, as we were talking with my producers, and we all come from various family dynamics and environments, but the one thing that we all sort of identify is that there's a deeper and deepening hurt with a mother-child toxic relationship.
Yeah. I think with a mother-child relationship, the difference is if you go back to the beginning of life, your mother gave you your life. Your mother was your incubator. Your mother was your first person that you ever touched in your life. So without even anyone saying anything to you, you're going to depend on this person for your existence and for your life. And without even putting in further expectations, it comes to the territory. Everything we do, first thing we do, we call mama. If we are in pain, we call mama. We are hungry, we call mama. Whatever it is. And to an extent that even if a mother who didn't give birth to you, but who is taking care of you, whether it's your grandmother or your aunt, you will actually attach those traits of deep motherhood to that person. So motherhood is a big role, it's a big thing, and it's something that doesn't have to be taken for granted. And hence, when it's toxic, it becomes very painful.
In fact, that term, the mother wound, Oprah had a lot of conversation around this in 2024. You know, and with various adults, males and females, unpacking that connection to their mothers and the decisions that led to them ultimately even cutting off their mothers. Because here's the thing, I want to also maybe understand at the beginning of this conversation, we always have this expectation of unconditional love that must come from your mother. But is that realistic the older you get? Because we're talking here about the context of an adult child, a grown-up who probably has their own family, and the relationship that they have with their mother. Is that realistic at all times, to have that expectation of unconditional love to come from your mother?
You know, unfortunately, it cannot be realistic, but what I can say is as we grow older, we tend to need our mother's love for different things. So some people become fixated in the old type of expectation of love from their mother, instead of developing and evolving as they grow up. And as a result, they can't even accept the changes that happen in their mother's life, for instance. And a lot of things happen in one's life. A mother cannot be the same throughout your life as much as you are not the same throughout your life. So as people change and as people evolve, we also need to evolve and change our expectations of them. And unconditional love, it's a conversation for another day. Is there unconditional love in any situation? Because from the beginning, we say we love people because. As soon as you add because, you are adding conditions. But we like saying unconditional because we want to believe that people accept us with our wins, with our smiles, with our frowns, with anything and everything that we come with. And for us, that defines unconditional. However, between a mother and a child, you'll find that most children, especially adult children who don't grow up, they end up abusing the term unconditional love from a mother, expecting that the mother can expect them to, can be expected to give love even when it's not necessary. They still expect to be held like little babies, whereas they are 23, 35, but they still have expect for a mama as well saying, okay, my little baby. It's not possible. So change is constant. Change is constant even in the way we love each other.
We are in conversation with Thabiseng Muketsi, who's a counseling psychologist, and we're trying to understand the dynamics that are at play, in the toxic mother-child relationship. And a lot of adults have to deal with the toxicity that comes from the relationships that they have with their parents, and some adults, taking it to the extremes and putting those walls of guards and boundaries up to a point where they cut all contact in order to self-preserve from their mothers. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to share your perspective or your experience. And because this is an emotive topic for a lot of people who are still on a healing journey, we completely understand if you want to remain anonymous. So 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. Is it also important, Thabiseng, I want to sneak this in before the headline news, is it also important in these dynamics, the older we get, you are now, 35, you're in your 40s, you have your own children, you are parenting yourself, or maybe you don't have your children, but you are now engaged in grown-up relationship dynamics of various kinds. Is it important at this stage to also start maybe looking at your mother from a different lens than that of your 6-year-old self? When you're trying to understand maybe what is the origins of this toxicity? What is the origins of this volatility that happens in this relationship or this disconnect? Is it also important to step back and try and understand your mother before she was your mother and have a look at all the circumstances that perhaps she engaged with during your entire sort of growing up years? Oh, Thabiseng his phone is disconnected. We're just trying to get her back on the line quickly. But I don't know if that's of importance or not, because when we talk a lot with psychologists, and if you've been into counseling yourself, at times they say without discarding your own feelings, it's also important to just take a lens and see the other person's perspective in order to understand the journey that they have walked and maybe have a little bit of empathy or sympathy for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you negate their actions or you accept their actions, but it just means you get a better understanding. We'll come back on the other side of the headline news and pick up this conversation from there. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you're more than welcome to do so. We'd love to hear your personal take on this conversation. And of course, 086-000-2032.
SABC CSI. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
With the headlines at 1:30, I'm Dino Motaung. Good afternoon. The National Assembly will hold a snap debate on the killing of 13 SANDF soldiers as well as the situation in the DRC. In other news, former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, has been released on warning by the Durban Magistrates Court, and Johannesburg Water will undergo a planned maintenance at the Hector Norris Pump Station from tomorrow until next Monday. The full update follows at the top of the hour.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
There is so much happening in the news circuit this afternoon, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to keep a keen eye on it. We're trying to work out the gremlins in the system right now, and hopefully as the show progresses, we'll be back to smooth operations. We're in conversation with psychologist and Tabiseng Mwiketse. We're trying to unpack the dynamics between mother and child, especially adult children. Specifically, this is what we're talking about when it comes to toxic relationships. And of course, our lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. A lot of us deal with mother-child dynamics in various forms, and we'd love to hear from you, your perspective on this conversation. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you're more than welcome to do so. Alternatively, you can give us a call on 086-000-2032, and you can always remain anonymous if you so wish. Before we get to the calls, and Tabiseng, I was just saying before our lines disconnected that is it important to also try in your adult grown child self to try and understand perhaps your mother's journey, to take a step back and reflect on the environment and sort of the factors that were at play as she journeyed along her adult years that may have impacted your relationship, or that may have impacted her and caused that she be incapable of arriving for you as a nurturing, caring, safe space.
Actually, where they're coming from, how they grew up, what gave them a certain perspective on life, and why they acted the way they do, because it will give you peace in terms of understanding why they interacted with you in the manner in which they interacted with you. And to also understand that people are different. You may not be the same way as your mother. You may not be built like your mother in terms of your thinking. But as soon as you understand where they're coming from, it will be easy for you to move forward, and it will release you from actually blaming. Because unfortunately, if you don't understand, you will keep blaming, you will keep guilt-tripping your mother, and the relationship will be more toxic. And once you understand, it will be easier to decide whether you want this relationship to continue, or you want to cut it off, or you want to continue with the relationship without expectations of your mother. And on the other hand, what are you learning from it? Because sometimes children can accuse their mother of doing certain things, and without noticing and without seeing it in themselves, they will be doing the same things as well. So we need to look at them and learn instead of look at them and blame. So let's look and learn. Let's look and not really forgive, but understand and move forward with a clear conscience that I do understand that my mother didn't grow up the way I am growing up. Yeah. Because in all fairness, they were also trying to be best mothers in your life in the way they can. And remember that every new day is a new day for you and your mother at that point. If you are 21, she has never had a 21-year-old child.
Yeah. Well, and you know, in terms of forgiveness, forgiveness is a hard concept, I think, for a lot of us. I know even for myself, but forgiveness doesn't negate or does not give pass to the other person's actions and injury. Forgiveness is just, I think, well, at least how I understand it, is you accepting the situation for what it was, and that perhaps it cannot be changed at this point and juncture, and then releasing yourself from that recurring emotion that keeps you attached to it, you know, so that you are able to say, okay, you injured me here, and this is how you injured me, and this is how I was hurt, and I understand your circumstances, and I'm moving on from this. But it does not necessarily mean that I'm not excusing you, and I'm not saying to you that it was okay. I'm just saying that I understand, and I'm going to move on from it.
Yes, it's not a license to atonement. You're not saying the person is completely free, but it's actually releasing you from the burden of carrying the hurt and the resentment. Because when you don't forgive, remember, unforgiveness comes from a point of judgment. You are judging the next person based on your position of power. You are looking at your mother from your position of power, without actually looking at their position of weakness and understanding it. So when you forgive, you are saying, I may not understand why you did what you did. I may not understand what you were going through. But what I don't understand is what you did to me in the process of understanding your own situation. The biggest thing is their reaction toward their life circumstances that may affect you. So when you forgive, you are forgiving them for saying, I understand, but I'm not going to be part of the game anymore. Whatever you're going through, whatever that has caused you to be this bitter person or this unforgiving or this whatever person that I don't find myself comfortable with, I live as is, but I'm not going to carry it anymore. It releases you more.
Yeah.
It's more about you than your mother. And once you do that, you're giving them an opportunity to also go through their journey, looking at themselves with compassion and say, but Margante, why do I act like this with my children? You know, is there anything I can do to change, to actually become a better mother? Because as I'm doing this, because I'm wounded, I'm wounding them. And as I'm wounding them, they are going to wound other people, which means the cycle just continues.
Absolutely.
So it has to stop somewhere.
I want to jump to Anonymous in East London. You've been patiently waiting by. How are you doing today? Anonymous? Oh, the connection is not connecting there. I can hear. But let's try Cornelius in Midrand, and then we'll jump back to Anon. Cornelius, how are you? Cornelius, can you hear me? I don't know what's going on, but looking at my producer's face, it seems like something is letting her down from a technological perspective. And she's trying to place those calls again. So I don't know what's going on. But is it possible to get over or to move on from a toxic relationship and turn the tide and make it one that is now healthy and nurturing?
It is very, very, very possible, but it is very difficult. It's not an easy journey, and it starts with you making that decision that I am going to let this go. You know, there are people who grow old and become very old women or men, well in their 50s and 60s, but they still fight with their parents for something that happened when they were 20 or 30 or in their teenage years. But forgiving and moving away is possible. And how do you do that? You acknowledge the fact that, yes, this person hurt me. And why do you think at that point you feel like you are hurt to a point where you need to carry the pain throughout your life? Understand that point as well, because remember, for as long as you live with the pain, you are not living your life. You are giving your life to that circumstances. So you don't grow with the relationship. You don't see the person as they grow. You don't enjoy the time that is offered to you on a daily basis. You are holding on to things that are in the past. So how do you deal with that to make your future and your future days pleasurable and pleasant?
Yeah.
Rather go back and say, is it worth it? Will it matter when I die? To really think about the and realize that I lived 50 years of my life hating my mother.
Yeah. Cornelius, you're back with us. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Now you, sis.
I'm good, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I just want to echo with the speaker, but just to share my own experience. You know, when your mom is old, the likelihood of them changing is nil. The best thing that one can do, you find your own place and you try to understand where they are. I had a conversation with my mom. Her expectation was, I gave birth to you, and not only I gave birth to you, I supported you through school. So the expectation is that they expect you to reciprocate what they've done to you without understanding that you also have your own battles. So the thing that one can do, you find your own place, and you continue to love them and support them from where they are, because at the end of the day, they have their own battles that they are going through.
Absolutely.
And if you live in separate homes, it makes a huge difference. Then, especially when you're married, it's just to talk to your wife or talk to your husband and find it within your budget, no matter how little it is, just to support them, because they sacrificed a lot for you, working as helpers for you to get degrees. And so it's an African thing, unfortunately. But I think it's just to love them. They are old, and the likelihood of them changing is nil.
Yeah, thank you, Cornelius.
So that's the best you can do.
Thank you so much for that. Let's also quickly jump to Nicholas, and then we'll come back. We'll wrap it up with some voice notes. Nicholas in Cape Town, how are you?
Well in the south.
I'm great. Go ahead.
I met my mom at I was 9 years old. By my father, she was never nice to me. She was toxic. She never supported me from standard 6 until matric. Even when I went to the bush, she was never there. But she passed away. I had to make peace. I buried her. I made peace with it. But it made me to be I became a toxic person, you know, towards my girlfriends, towards my kids. I had to find help. You know, I got married 9 years ago. I got married. I was toxic to my wife. So I went, you know, to find help as well. So I mean, my mother passed away in 2009, and I'm still healing until today. So it was, just a pathetic one.
Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing. And listen, we wish you strength on your journey to healing. I think when we all go on these sort of journeys to understand our childhoods and really engage with our childhoods for the purposes of healing, it's a very, very difficult ask on oneself. And so we wish you the very best on that journey, and of course, continued strength to you to keep doing it. Let's go to WhatsApp.
Some of us were raised by those kind of mothers. Some of them are even worse than what we saw on that video. But I mean, like, we knew these people as well at the early stages of our lives. So I think that the lesson there should be, as soon as one get a chance maybe to work, is just to get yourself your own place, to walk away from those kind of people. Because if you think you're going to assist them by just maybe assisting in a house and stuff like that, at the end, she will always threaten you, but she's going to chase you away from the house.
It's so unfortunate, because I thought we'd play that whole message, because it really was a message, you know, on the bullseye on the conversation, but it's so soft. If you send us a voice note, please just make sure that you use your outdoor voice and ensure that the volume is up for us. But I think we strained, but we heard exactly what the gentleman was sharing. And Tabi saying, let's wrap it up, you know, as my next guest is eagerly awaiting. But just some words of advice for folks who are in a toxic mother-child adult relationship and trying to find their way through this. And specifically, as like our last caller, Nicholas, was saying, if you are now parenting your own children, the worst thing that could ever happen to a child is a wounded parent who has not healed from their own childhood trauma.
When you hurt other people. So the first place to start is to acknowledge the pain that you experienced. If you grew up with pain from your parents, acknowledge that. And after acknowledging that, you'll be able to want to get help for yourself. Be selfish about yourself. Be selfish about you being happy and you being the epitome of love. And saying to yourself, whatever I have learned from my parents, I'm going to do the opposite of it by actually being love and giving out love to people I care, which are my children. That's number one. Number two is to learn to manage your expectations. We always have expectations of people, whether they are our lovers, our partners, and more importantly, our children. Manage your expectations and ask yourself, if I am at B, why do I expect B and C from this person?
Yeah.
What I expect from them, can I get it? And in return, what am I putting on the table? Because you can't expect without giving. And yes, sometimes your parents give their all to raise you and other very difficult circumstances, but that doesn't give them a right to actually bulldoze you as you try to live, to say, I did extra for you, why are you not doing ABCD for me? It's important to have a relationship where you both agree that, Mama, I acknowledge and I'm happy that you did extra for me. I'm going to do this and this for you. So let's try and reach a point where you start with yourself to say, what does this mean for you?
We have to leave it there, unfortunately, for this afternoon. But thank you so much for your professional advice. And no doubt it will come in handy for more than a few of our listeners this afternoon. That was Ntabiseng Mwiketsi, a counseling psychologist. If you just missed the conversation, you can always double back to it on our podcast. A young lady once tweeted on X, when this conversation was unfolding around the toxicity of the mother-child relationship and that mother wound, and she tweeted, as a daughter, I am absolutely angry at my mother, but as a woman, I have grace for her. And perhaps that surmises the gist of our conversation today. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll be right back.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan. 10% deposit, prime is 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. T&Cs apply.
All SASA Gold cards will stop working on the 28th of February 2025. Replace yours today with the new Postbank Black Card at no cost. Join hundreds of thousands of grant beneficiaries already receiving their grants on their new Postbank Black Cards. For your convenience, you can collect your card at multiple locations nationwide. Card replacement points are at selected ShopRite Checkers, Pick n Pay and Boxer stores. To find a location near you, dial *120 *218 *3#. Don't wait. Upgrade your card today for free. Trusted by millions for 150 years. Postbank, your bank. The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
It's Jordan Ayew, back to goal. Jordan Ayew has scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on the Full Circle.
All right, as our conversation continues, and we are getting into a conversation now with Levi Sekonya, who is a filmmaker and founder of Short Film Sundays. In a country that's brimming with untold stories, Short Film Sundays is creating a stage for young South African filmmakers to shine. And we're going to have this conversation now and revisit South Africa's film industry from the ground up. How are you doing this afternoon, Levi?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm good, thanks. And you?
I'm good, thank you. All right, give us some background, firstly, around Short Film Sundays.
Short Film Sundays is a concept that we're actually starting now in terms of showcasing new actresses, new actors, and new films, especially for people that don't have access to equipment and being able to showcase these films on bigger stages. So we're trying to have this Short Film Sundays every once a month at least for these young artists to come showcase their work.
And very important for young filmmakers to have spaces for them to find audience.
Yes, definitely. And obviously we've seen like the rise in terms of online things like Netflix and all of those. So I think that deterred most of the market. So we're not seeing a lot of short films come out of South Africa.
Yeah. Are we big by way of short films as South Africans? Has this been part of the film culture and the film history of the country? And if so, why have we seen less and less of it in recent years?
I think it hasn't been. So for most years, we'd only see most television shows. We'd see one or two movies come out. But recently, I think lack of access to technology, lack of access to equipment, it's better to showcase a short film in order for you to get funded for full-length film. So I think it starts from the ground where we're not getting enough filmmakers making these short films to showcase their talent and their capability in handling a bigger project. So the larger industry suffers. We see less films and less opportunities. Yeah.
So the other thing I'm wondering, given the financial constraints in the South African television and film industry right now, I know a lot of people will talk about how channels who would ordinarily be the big commissioners of films, whether long format, short format, don't have budgets, don't have budgets to be commissioning projects anymore. Given those financial constraints, how much does that then have a sort of a rippling effect on young filmmakers? Because talent is not a problem in the country, right? It's access and finance, really, that causes the big stumbling block.
Yes, I think for the longest of times, I think Minister McKenzie also mentioned that the money is controlled by a certain number of people, and so the creators don't get these budgets to work on their films. So for the longest of times, we've seen actors come out of the acting for 20 years and still not being able to acquire the funds or whatever it is they need to do or survive. So I think it starts from just that.
Talk to me a bit also about, the resources, because for your guys, it's not just a space for young filmmakers to come through and find audience, to screen their projects, but it's also a space, from what I understand, where you're equipping young creatives with necessary tools and knowledge.
Yes. I think from my perspective, Nando's helped me a lot. In 2023, I won the Nando's Youth Content Creator of the Year, and from these short format contents that we create, it gets you noticed for funding from government resources like NYDA, recently they CITFA. So I think there is information and there is funding. It's just that a lot of filmmakers are focusing on the creative side and not reading into what's needed for you to actually start a production company and so on.
Does everybody though need to be, in order sort of for the ecosystem to work and to be successful, does every storyteller also need to be a business person, in the sense of there is a very different hat that is worn by an executive producer and a showrunner, for instance, versus a show creator, or versus a writer, for instance, you know what I mean? So does the ecosystem require everybody to have a 360 understanding of every element of it and be strong at every element of it? Or should we be getting to a point now where we are bridging those gaps between really brilliant storytellers and really, equally so brilliant business people in the creative sector, and then they're able to forge their strengths together to make something work?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. And until we get to a point where we like Hollywood and all those, you have to actually fill in all those roles. So, for example, with my short film, I had to play the role of producer, director, and editor. And so my creative attention gets what's divided amongst those. So I think we really need people in certain positions, people of color as well in certain positions, to call the creators. Because we've seen shows like Vuzu, we've seen shows like what's this on Netflix, How to Run Christmas, and how those concepts are working. But all the budgets still go to certain types of shows that don't really reflect like a modern South African. So I think we need people in both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that's another conversation, I think, by way of, what is produced versus what consumers are consuming, and who gets to dictate those stories to some degree, right? Because that in itself is another slippery slope of this conversation. I do agree with you, though, that we do need more diversity by way of the stories that are told, whether on our small screens or big screens, because as a nation, we have varying interests and varying stories to tell.
Very, very much so. And in terms of culture, our culture spread so much, and we see Americans coming into South Africa to actually get a piece of that culture. And if we don't tell the stories, they actually get the opportunity to tell their perspective, and they control the narrative. So I think it's high time we actually tell a story of a modern South Africa.
Based on your own experience as a young storyteller and a young filmmaker, what advice would you give, a young person who's recently graduated, dipping their feet fully now into the industry or wanting to do so? What would be your word of advice in as far as them embarking on this journey of storytelling, of becoming a filmmaker?
Yeah, I think my advice would be start short, because you're not going to have the resources to make long format content. So you can always start small. We always see people on TikTok as well and Instagram. So you can start with those short films, start with short format content, advertising, adverts. So you can start small. Even with your phone, we've seen people do a lot of great work with their phone, and that'll get you to the next stage. Definitely.
When you bring up social media, those two platforms right now, quite ripe, I think, for an innovative young storyteller to be able to use those platforms. You can tell a brilliant story in 2.5 minutes.
Definitely. We've seen actors that take clips from like a radio station or something where people are having a conversation and actually turn it into a visual story on TikTok. And I love watching some of those. So it's actually a good place to start these days.
Absolutely. Well, listen, short film Sundays. So when does it happen? How often does it happen? Because we know also young people, you like to do first Sundays, last Sundays.
Yeah, I think it's going to be every last Sunday so that everyone is paid and everyone's happy.
So you're aiming at every last Sunday.
Yeah, but our first one is going to be in April, and we're going to showcase 3 to 5 films, and it'll be an opportunity to network as well.
Yeah. Are you on social media so people can track the details?
Yes, I am. So Levy_VI on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
Levy_VI? That's it?
On Instagram, yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Levy_VI on Instagram. I feel like, Levy, you should be starting a handle at this. When we hang up the phone, you should go find a handle for @ShortFilmSundays on Instagram so that we can separate the two entities from each other. But thank you so much for the time. That was Levy Sekonya, who's a filmmaker and founder of Short Film Sundays, and they're kicking off with the first one come this April. And I'm sure he's going to hang up the phone and then he's going to start a handle for @ShortFilmSundays so that you're able to track that schedule. 2 o'clock, and of course, the news is standing by.
Top stories: Parliament to debate SANDF deaths in the DRC and Duduzile Zuma Sambudla to pursue malicious prosecution case. With the news, I'm Dino Motaung. Good afternoon. The National Assembly will hold a snap debate on the killing of 13 SANDF soldiers, as well as the situation in the DRC. The National Assembly Programming Committee has agreed that this is an important topic for Parliament to deal with. Some parties are pushing for it to be held as soon as possible, considering the severity of the situation. National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza has given her assurance the debate will be scheduled shortly.
In that regard, I also want to acknowledge that two parties has made a request for a snap debate to deliberate on this matter. And I've responded to them, and I just want to say to this meeting, we are considering that matter and also the possible dates at which the debate must take place.
In other news, the legal representative of former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, says they intend pursuing a case of malicious prosecution against the state. Zuma Sambudla is out on warning after being officially charged under the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorists and Related Activities Act and incitement to commit violence related to the 2021 July unrest. She appeared briefly before the Durban Magistrates Court for bail application. Kalimpofu told the court that the allegations against her are unfounded.
At the right forum, we will submit was totally uncalled for. And maybe just for the sake of completion, to say that A, as indicated in the statement, we hold instructions to bring a case of malicious prosecution at the right stage. That this matter had to occupy the services of 12 to 15 senior state advocates. Just to read Twitter messages speaks for itself as to the wastage of state resources in this country.
Meanwhile, the state has argued that it has a strong case against Zuma Sambudla. Prosecutor Eureka Ngai further dismissed claims that the case was politically motivated.
We've considered the facts in this case and we believe that we have a strong case. Let me stop my submission on that day. So to say that the state has a weak case is not a given fact. With regard, the one issue that I feel that I must address now is the suggestion that the prosecution is malicious and that it is politically motivated somehow. I'm at the tail end of a very long career in prosecution. I can simply say that if there was any political interference in this matter, I would have been the first one to expose it.
In Gauteng, Johannesburg Water will undergo a planned maintenance at the Hector Norris Pump Station from tomorrow until next Monday. The water utility says this is aimed at improving infrastructure for sustainable water supply. The affected areas include the Johannesburg CBD, Newtown, Jippistown, Doornfontein and Melville. Johannesburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala is urging residents to use water sparingly.
Residents will be impacted by low pressure to no water for the duration of the maintenance. While alternative water supply will be provided, residents are also urged to store water in preparation.
Lastly, the Western Cape Education Department has condemned the actions of parents of children at the Solomon Qachana Primary School at Asanda Village in Strand after they shut it down. The closure is allegedly due to the department not meeting a promise to build new school structures to replace existing mobile classrooms. Education Department spokesperson Brona Hammond says they are committed to expanding access to schools in the area.
The WC is open to engaging with the community leaders on this issue. However, we cannot condone any disruption to schooling. We remind communities that the SA Schools Act indicates that any person who unlawfully and intentionally interrupts, disturbs or hinders any official education activity of a school is guilty of an offence and is liable on conviction to a fine or to imprisonment.
Recapping the top story this hour, the National Assembly will hold a snap debate on the killing of 13 SANDF soldiers as well as the situation in the DRC. For SFM News, I'm Dino Mutaung. The next update is at 2:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. All SASA Gold cards will stop working on the 28th of February 2025. Replace yours today with the new Postbank Black Card at no cost. Join hundreds of thousands of grant beneficiaries already receiving their grants on their new Postbank Black Cards. For your convenience, you can collect your card at multiple locations nationwide. Card replacement points are at selected ShopRite Checkers, Pick n Pay and Boxer stores. To find a location near you, dial *120 *218 *3 hash. Don't wait. Upgrade your card today for free. Trusted by millions for 150 years. Postbank, your bank.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
And I've been searching for the place where my soul can dance. And when I find that place, I'll know I belong. And when I find that place, I'll know that I am home. Oh, in the indlela, esukekaya, and I've been searching for the place where my soul can dance. And when I find that place, I'll know I belong. And when I find that place, oh, I know that I am home. And I've been searching for the place where my soul can dance. And when I find that place, I'll know I belong. And when I find that place, oh, I'll know that I am home. Yeah, I'll know that I am home. When I see my mama's face, when I feel a warm embrace, yeah, I'll know, yeah. When I see my daddy smile, yeah, yeah, I'll know. Said I'll know that I am home. Said I'll know that I am home. Yeah, yeah, I am home. Said I'll know that I am home. When I see my mama smile, I am home. And she says I should stay where I am home. Then I'll know that I am home. And I'll know it. I am home. I'll know that I am home. Then I'll know that I am home.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
NSFAS does not pay for damages in our residences. When students leave, we paint and we prepare for the next. NSFAS does not pay that.
The picture, of course, that is created really is it's around how NSFAS operates and treats its service providers, its suppliers.
Mama Bulu used to work at NSFAS. Maybe he was part of and leading, had as an intention treating stakeholders like that.
Kagisho Mamabolo, who is the CEO of the Private Student Housing Association. Freeman Nomvalo is the administrator at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen and nothing is off the agenda. Join me on The Talking Point every day from 9 a.m. to 12 noon.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Continuing the conversations this afternoon with Tibelo Muchwani, who is the founder of Sisters-in-Law. And Tibelo has actually been on the show before, and we chatted all kinds of interesting... We were talking different sort of marital statuses, if I recall, at the time. We have a few of those podcasts from last year, as well as the year before, by the way, because we always engage different kinds of conversations when it comes to civil marriage versus traditional marriage, versus just different also dynamics that are often at play in relationships and things that, eventualities that happen that require legal interventions. So if you want to double back on some of those podcasts and just refresh yourself, it is January and a lot of people are getting into some kind of marital contract at the time. And there's some things that you might want to be familiar with. So Tibelo is here today and we're looking at changing your marriage contract from an in-community to an anti-nuptial. And we'll speak about the other things in between, like the dissolving of one's civil marriage to a traditional marriage, because this is a conversation we had last week around some of the King Misuzulu's options when it comes to his saga that is unfolding. How are you doing this afternoon?
Hi, Bridget. I am very well, thank you. Thank you for having me once again. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for the time. Interestingly enough, no matter how many times we have conversations, different conversations from different angles about marriage, the construct of marriage, relationships, the different scenarios that could come into play, etc., 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 we always seem to find ourselves with so many people that have chosen the wrong option for their path, and it's come back with really severe consequences. what do clients and what do people tell you about their lack of doing homework around the legalities of marriage before getting into any type of marriage?
Very true, Bridget. So I think it's important to sort of differentiate between the, let me say, the eras or the age gaps. If we're talking about the older generation, we can almost confidently say that the number of platforms which were sharing this kind of information were not enough, and a lot of the time the influence just came from doing what has always been done, right? So maybe particularly as Black families, the conversation when being confronted with marriage was not necessarily about contracts. It was always about negotiations. And a lot of the time, the context was also, what's the word I can use, was also dependent on one's religion or their faith in Christianity and so forth, and the idea of marriage being a institution of the church or something ordained by God, right? But with the later generation, we think that the information is doing the rounds, but maybe not as much as it should be doing. But definitely it is a matter of just doing research and actually being invested in having these kinds of conversations with your partner, The information is available out there. A simple Google search as well has tons of stuff to say about the different marriage regimes that exist. So with more recent times, it is definitely a lack of knowledge mixed with a lack of not wanting to do a little bit more research.
Absolutely. And I don't know why one would not want to do a little bit more research, given everything that we know from our parents' experiences, our friends' experiences, social media, the neighbors. So you definitely want to be doing some kind of research. Let's talk about the marriage contracts, right? So most people grew up with the term in community of property. We know it. It's the socially acceptable term, but also at the same time, you don't really question what it is unless you're somebody who's doing the homework. People just go, oh, you get married and you get married in community of property.
Correct. I think for the benefit of people who have not joined our previous conversations, I'll just do a high-level overview of the different marriage regimes that exist and also the marriage system. So there are three marriage systems, which is a civil marriage governed by the Marriages Act. That is the one that we are all familiar with, where one husband marries one wife. Then there is the civil union, which is governed by the Civil Union Act, and that allows for same-sex couples to form a union of a marriage, or rather a civil union. Partners who prefer to be, heterosexual couples can also be solemnized under a civil union if they prefer, if they don't want to necessarily be married in the traditional sense of a civil marriage. And then the last one is a customary marriage, which is regulated by the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act. And that one just formalizes marriages which are concluded in accordance with customary law and also allow for polygamous marriages. All three that I've mentioned have equal standing with each other. And with respect to customary marriages, it's important for me to highlight the fact that even if your customary marriage is not registered, you are validly married, right? So this means that if lobola has been paid, notwithstanding the fact that it has not been paid in full, you are still considered by the law to be married. And then there are three different marriage regimes that exist. The default that exists is a marriage in community of property. That is where all your assets and liabilities from before you guys met, during the marriage, they form what is called a joint estate. In the event of the marriage terminating by death or divorce, the joint estate is split 50-50 between the two. One of the things I'd like to highlight about that is that by the consequence of that system, you inherit each other's debts equally, even if it were debts that were acquired before you guys even met each other. Then we have out of community of property with accrual, which basically states that everything you accrue after the date of marriage is what's going to be shared between the parties 50-50, or rather half the difference between the two estates after the date of marriage. You will retain your separate estates and your liabilities, and there's no obligation to take on your spouse's debts. And then the last one is out of community of property without accrual, and basically that one just states that what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. In order for you to avoid being married in community of property, you have to conclude what is called an antenuptial contract, which is popularly known as a prenup. If this prenup is not concluded before the date of the marriage, then you are automatically married in community of property. But that's not the end of the story. If you realize that you are married and you're married in community of property, you can always change your marriage regime, which brings us to today's conversation.
And I want us to pause right there as we take a break, Tibelo, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll get into the changing of your marriage regime.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than sticking to your New Year's resolution to eat healthy, then immediately reaching for the leftover pizza in the fridge and deciding it's a reward for surviving day one. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi. Because where words fail, music speaks.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
All right, we are in conversation with founder of Sisters-in-Law, Tibelo Mutswane, joins us now, and we are talking about changing your marriage contract from in-community to anti-nuptial. Now that we've recapped on the different regimes of marriage, so now we're married in community of property, and we decide to have this change of heart. Walk us through how that works, and are there particular time frames that are in place here as to when you can change to a one or other option?
All right. So there are two methods in which a marriage can be changed from in community of property to out of community of property. The first one is what is called a Section 20 application, which is made in terms of the Matrimonial Property Act. And Section 20 basically states that one spouse can make an application to court if it is in the interest of that spouse that the joint estate is or will be seriously prejudiced by the conduct or proposed conduct of the other spouse. An example of this is if you can prove that your spouse maybe has an addiction of gambling or any other addiction that is really placing the joint estate under a lot of prejudice or has the potential to do so, and this will basically put the joint estate in financial ruins, one spouse can make that application to court, and the court will order an immediate division of the joint estate. And then the second way in which you can change your marriage regime is by a Section 121 application, which is made in terms of the Matrimonial Property Act, and that's basically a joint application. So both spouses have to make an application to court and provide sound reasons for the proposed change. Sufficient notice of the proposed change has to be given to all the creditors of the spouses, and also show that no other person will be prejudiced by the proposed change. There is no time limit on when you can do this application. As soon as you and your spouse have had a conversation saying, listen, we got married when we were fairly young, but given the fact that you're in business and you are the one who is overseeing the expenses of the house, if something happens to your business, we do not want creditors coming after the house. Maybe let's change our marriage regime, transfer the house into my name so that we know that if things go bad in business, we will at least still retain our home.
Gotcha.
That is just an example of the sound reasons that can be given when making this application.
I wanted to jump to WhatsApp quickly because we're short on time and get a question from our listeners, and then I'll settle another one onto that.
All right.
Hello, Bridget. Good afternoon. And to your guest, Tabelo, and the listeners, it's Keshi here from the Western Cape. I have a question which I need to have answered quite urgently, please. A South African living in Dubai and getting married in the United Arab Emirates to somebody from the Schengen, one of the Schengen countries, Bulgaria. What would you advise in terms of a prenuptial contract, and according to what law would it be? Could we do a normal South African type of Roman Dutch law contract? Please, could you help out here? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Tabilo, interesting one there. Living in Dubai, marrying in the UAE, so I guess United Arab Emirates laws might apply. Getting married to someone who's of Schengen descent.
So at the moment, the marriage law will be governed by where the husband is domiciled. So where does the husband ordinarily live? If the short to long term intention is to be in, Dubai or wherever else, then the laws of that country will apply. If the intention is that they're going to get married and soon after settle in South Africa, then they might want to consider them being married in South Africa, and then the laws of South Africa will apply.
That's the long and short of it, without us knowing the nitty-gritties. I've just often assumed, similar to what you're saying, that where you get married, the laws of that country will ultimately govern your marital contract.
No, it is currently the domicile of the husband.
Okay.
So not necessarily where you get married, because remember, a couple can elect to have a destination wedding.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that they're going to then go live in Thailand or live in Las Vegas or wherever else they decide to have their destination wedding. So that's why it's the domicile of the husband that will dictate to us which laws will apply to that marriage.
Got you. And then I wanted to find out, in these separate applications, Section 20, you say one spouse can apply to make an application. Do you need permission of the other spouse?
No, you don't need
Does the other spouse
permission.
need to be in agreement?
The other spouse does not need to be in agreement because this makes provision for one spouse. Basically, the spouse who has the potential of being disgruntled in the long run from the other spouse's reckless behavior. So the court doesn't need the permission of that person, because once you confront a person about their addiction, they're at liberty to say, no, I'll work on it or whatever. So the urgency of the application warrants that only one spouse needs to make that kind of application.
Got you. Would this also apply in the scenarios of folks wanting to dissolve their civil marriage for the purpose of later realizing that actually what they want in life is to be in a polygamous customary marriage?
So as things stand, in order to be in a polygamous customary marriage, the civil marriage will need to be dissolved by way of divorce, and then you can enter a customary marriage, which will enable a person to then take on two wives.
I see. So when we talk dissolving of the civil marriage, it gets very interesting for King Misizulu. So when we talk the dissolving of the civil marriage, we literally are talking divorce of the other person. And in that case, how do you ensure then that the first civil wife is protected, so that after we dissolve this marriage, we really do then get into a customary marriage and you just don't walk out the door?
So an important document to conclude and that kind of application can be made concurrently, is that the court should ensure that an order is made to indicate that the parties are married out of community of property to each other. So the dissolution of the civil marriage will technically result in the joint estate of that civil marriage being split 50-50 and then continuing to go your way of a polygamous marriage.
I see. It gets so complicated because I feel like that's a whole nother conversation on its own. Just so much, so much to unpack there. But listen, we've fast run out of time. Let me sneak in a quick one before the headline news. Do these changes, do they come at any high cost for couples? Changing from the one marriage and in community to anti-nuptial, obviously above the legal attorney's fees.
Correct. It will always be cheaper to have an anti-nuptial contract drafted before you get married. So if you're not yet married, prioritize an anti-nuptial contract. The Section 21 application is costly because it comes with the High Court applications and registering the post-nuptial contract at the Register of Deeds and all the advertisements that have to be made in the government gazette and local newspapers. So it is a bit costly, but obviously it will depend from attorney to attorney. I just want to put it out there that an attorney in Sandton wouldn't necessarily charge the same as an attorney who is maybe based in the township or remote areas.
Gotcha, because we don't have the same overheads. Tibelo Mutswani, thank you so much for the time. Tibelo is the founder of Sisters-in-Law. It's just gone 2:30. It's time for us to get into the headline news with Dineo Mutaung, and then we come back on the other side of that and we get into Side by Side.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 2:30. The City of Cape Town has received another successive clean audit in the latest annual report for 2023-24 from the Auditor General. In other news, the National Assembly will hold a snap debate on the killing of 13 SANDF soldiers, as well as the situation in the DRC. And the South African Reserve Bank will announce its repo rate decision this afternoon, with economists expecting a 25 basis point cut to 7.5%. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Grindkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Asibambisana Zini na zini Ayikhomaneni Haratwarani Say and say Side by side.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Side by Side right here on SAFM, and welcome. We're here to celebrate the fact that you're the most important person in your child's life. We know that raising children is a difficult thing, and we want to support you on the journey with good information, advice from our good experts, and a lot of information that you'll really need. This show is brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Today we're talking about contraceptives and dual protection methods. We heard from our drama episode yesterday how Nespiliswa discussed the importance of understanding and using contraceptives correctly to prevent unintended pregnancies and protect ourselves against sexually transmitted infections. Joining us today to talk about the importance of contraceptives and dual protection methods is Ms. Tebogo Mabubula from City of Johannesburg Health Department. Thank you, Ms. Mabubula, for joining us today. Dual protection methods, what are they and why are they so important?
A dual contraception method refers to the use of two forms of contraception simultaneously to achieve a maximum protection against both unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infection. The most common example is the use of condoms along with the method of your choice. So a condom will act as a barrier and it will give you protection against the risk of STIs. And the method of your choice can be either an implant, an IUD, or injectables.
When selecting the most suitable contraceptive method, what are the several important factors to keep in mind?
Choosing the right contraceptive method involves several considerations, which are effectiveness. Different methods have varying levels of effectiveness, like the long-acting reversible contraceptives, which are the IUD or the implant, are more effective. While condoms and birth control pills, they require you consistent and the correct use of it. Lifestyle. You need to consider how a method fits into your daily routine. For instance, if you don't want to think about contraception during the day, the best method for you will be an implant or an IUCD. Health conditions. Some contraceptives may not be suitable for the individual with certain health conditions. So it's important to discuss your medical history with a healthcare provider so that you are able to choose a safe method. Side effects, you have to be aware of potential side effects. Some methods do cause side effects like weight gain, mood changes, or menstrual irregularities. Understanding this can help in making an informed choice. Protection against STI. If the intention is to protect against STI, then you know that you have to use your condom. Future fertility plans. Consider your plans for having children in the future. Some methods are easily reversible, while others, like sterilization, are permanent.
Postpartum control is advised for several important reasons. Why is it recommended?
If you are not using a birth control method, it is possible to get pregnant very soon after having a baby. Using a birth control method weeks after you have a baby helps you to avoid an unintended pregnancy and lets you plan your family. Many experts have recommended waiting at least 18 months between pregnancies before having another baby. If you are not breastfeeding, ovulation will occur within few weeks after childbirth. If you are breastfeeding, ovulation may be delayed, but it usually returns in about 6 months. Once ovulation occurs, you can get pregnant again. Ovulation usually occurs 2 weeks before your menstrual period starts. This means that you can get pregnant even if you have not had a period.
So, Ms. Mabubula, is it safe for new moms who are breastfeeding to use contraceptives?
Yes, if you are breastfeeding, you can safely use hormonal method. They won't hurt you or your baby. Ask your healthcare worker on the option you can take. You may be able to get an implant or an IUD at the clinic or at the hospital at your postpartum checkup. Remember, implant and IUD are super effective and prevent pregnancy for several years. They are a set it and forget it birth control. You can get use of your birth control app to keep track of your insertion date and removal date. For the first 3 weeks after giving birth, don't use a method that has a hormone estrogen, like the pills such as Nodet or Trifacil, a patch, or a ring. But after 3 weeks, you can start any of these methods.
What alternatives to hormonal methods are available for me to consider?
You can safely use a non-hormonal birth control while breastfeeding. For up to the first 6 months after your baby is born, you can rely on breastfeeding as a birth control if you have not gotten your period yet and are not feeding your baby formula or food, meaning that you have to be exclusively breastfeeding for the first 6 months. The other method is copper IUD, which is the most effective birth control method out there, and it lasts for 5 years. It is a pretty convenient option if you don't want to add a birth control to the list of things you have to remember. Other non-hormonal birth control options are condoms, or you can speak to a healthcare worker about any available option.
Thank you, Ms. Mabubula, for joining us today. Any closing comments?
If you don't want to become pregnant soon after having your baby, choose an effective method of contraception. It is easy to fall pregnant soon after giving birth, but remember to always use dual contraception. Your choice of contraception after giving birth will depend on whether and how often you are breastfeeding and how suitable various methods are.
What an insightful conversation. I hope you learned something new. Before we end today's episode, it's competition time. Side by Side would like to thank you for tuning in weekly on our program by giving away a cash prize of 1,000 Rand on our last program of the month. To stand a chance of winning, leave your name and number on our social media direct messages and share the Side by Side post on Facebook, Instagram and X using the handle @SAFM Radio. And you could be our lucky listener who will receive a call and be asked one easy question. If you get it right, you win yourself 1,000 Rand. For more information, visit the Side by Side social media platforms and SAFM Radio. Today's lucky listener is Pam from Cape Town. Let's give her a call.
Hello.
Hi Pam, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm calling you from the Side by Side team at SAFM.
Oh, okay.
And I believe you've been listening to Side by Side ever since it started on SAFM, right?
Yes, I have, my darling. I have.
So I've got a question for you. If you get it right, you win yourself 1,000 Rand. And if you don't, unfortunately, we'll go to the next listener.
Oh, my word. Okay. All right. Let's go for it.
Okay, so your question is it safe for new moms to use contraceptives after giving birth?
Okay. Yes, it is safe. And it can be done immediately after giving birth. For any mom that doesn't want to get pregnant and have another child just after giving birth.
I've got good news. You just won yourself 1,000 Rand.
Yay! Oh my word, you made my January. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pam. And continue listening to Side by Side on SAFM, okay?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
If you would like to win yourself 1,000 Rand like Pam, continue listening to Side by Side, and who knows, you could be our lucky listener. And thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again same time next week when we'll be talking about TB, your child, and your family.
Side by Side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. Living your best life on the Full Circle.
Alrighty, we're just trying to work some things out behind the scenes here. For now, though, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We wanted to have a conversation that ties into the pending repo rate conversation repo rate decision that's happening in probably the next 15 minutes or so by the Reserve Bank governor. We're anticipating, of course, that all indicators show that he's going to announce a 25% point basis. And this is what all the financial analysts have been singing the entire morning. We have no reason to doubt them this time around. We've enjoyed a little bit of a wonderful sort of reprieve when it comes to the repo rate, and a lot of them are in consensus as well that this will probably be one of two repo cuts for us to anticipate this year. A lot of folks saying 25% point basis today, and then 25 points again at the end of March. And everybody also singing from the same hymn book, saying that 2 should be the number that we are going to go with for the remainder of the year. But some welcomed relief for South African consumers and those, of course, who owe by way of debt. It just eases things a little bit on the pocket. So we wanted to have a conversation that ties into that looks at buying to let and whether or not that is still a smart decision in South Africa now, given just the trend that we're kind of seeing, or perhaps folks should hold off on doing that. But whilst we get that guest on the line, whilst we try and get Odette on the line, we are going to switch to another conversation. And we're going to catch up with Joel Zuma, who's a singer, songwriter, and actor. And we're looking at this amazing tribute to Luther Vandross that's returning to the Joburg Theatre come the 14th and 15th of February, just in time for Valentine's Day. If memory serves correct, I think we had this we had this chat last year, around about the same time, right? Leading to Valentine's Day, I think. And it was with Joel, if I remember correctly. Joel, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Bridget. How are you? And greetings to all the listeners of it.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I remember being serenaded at the beginning of February in studio by a wonderful velvety voice.
Your memory serves you very well. Absolutely, that did happen indeed. Yes.
Ah, lovely, lovely, lovely stuff. So you are back again. You are returning to the Joburg Theatre. No doubt, then last season was well received and you had a great run.
Absolutely. I mean, we're still growing the show, and we were surprised at the response. It really showed that people have a need for this kind of offering that we are offering, to have soul ballads, R&B, classics performed live. And we were surprised to be sold out so quickly that we needed to add another show, which was also sold out. So we said to ourselves, we'll wait. Next year, which is now, 2025, we will go for 2 shows from the word go, as opposed to setting up one show and then have to extend quickly because the demand is beyond you. Yeah.
And a wonderful time of the year also to pay tribute to Luther Vandross. I mean, he was regarded as one of the greatest romantic ballad singers, the balladeers, I don't even know what the term is, crooners of recent times. And there's just been a Luther Vandross documentary actually that's just come out also.
Correct. Never Too Much was released just a few months ago. I had a pleasure to watch it. And what a joy to get to know the man behind the music, his emotions, why he wrote which song, who he collaborated with, and other stories that you don't get easily in the media, and some of the footage that was rare and that we had not seen before. It was really just amazing. For me, I've had a pleasure to also read his book, biography, The Life and the Longing of Luther. They took quite a bit from that book, so it was almost like I was reading the book, and it kind of just revitalized the respect that I have of this icon, and it made me realize that we are on the right track, because actually when we started doing this show, I thought I was going to call it Never Too Much, which is what the movie or documentary is called. And then later on, I was like, oh, no, I think I want to call it So Amazing, because it's just, it's so amazing to be loved. It's such a beautiful song. And it's interesting that, the documentary came through pretty much around the season that we are also doing the show.
Again, a great time to us South Africans and theatre lovers and just music lovers alike to convene together over the 2 days. It's in celebration of life and love, of course, 14th of February and 15th of February. Just 1 day shy of Galentine's Day, but it's okay. We'll forever recognize Galentine's Day. What's in store for the folks this year?
Oh, we wanna make it better. We wanna make it bigger. We also from last year I had set this set list, and we didn't know how people are going to respond to it. So when people were responding, we started then taking into account the kind of songs people want to hear, the kind of songs people sing along to, and boy did they sing. They were singing along to almost every song, but there were specific songs that they liked, and we started adding a few of similar songs, those sing-along songs. And what a difficult thing to try and do a 2-hour show out of this catalog of 14 albums. It drives us crazy. Which song do we leave? Which one do we put on? Because all of them are just that much amazing. But I want to say, it's interesting that you speak about theaters. We want this to go around South Africa. It's not based in Johannesburg only. We want to go to Cape Town. We want to go to Durban. We want to go to Bloemfontein, anywhere, because people are hungry for that kind of music and performed live. And we really pay huge respect when we perform the music. We want people who know the music to feel like they are watching Luther live at Albert Hall or at Radio City Hall somewhere in the world.
I mean, also just wonderful, as you say, for people who love the music to really just come together and gives a different variation to the theatre experience, I think, bringing the sort of current circular contemporary music onto these stages.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen, having been in a lot of musical shows and music reviews, having seen how well the tribute shows go, whether they be tribute to ABBA, Elton John, Beatles, Michael Jackson, and all. And I've always felt like, can we not have something more soulful, something more romantic, something more ballad-like, something more soft? And when I didn't get it, I said to myself, let's actually do it. I should solve that problem. So I'm glad that when I approached Joburg Theatre, they were like, yay, Joe, listen, you have our blessings. We're in agreement. Come here and do this. And people came out in numbers. And I want to say that a lot of people were not even just couples. Some of them were just single people who just love good music performed live. Some of them were a group of girls who are saying, we're going for a night out. Some were a group of gents who are like, I say, okay, Zamesho, let's go and just, let's just go and see, look and see. So everybody's welcome. And it's not just because it's Valentine's. We hope that other theaters will pick us up and we will find ourselves performing in May somewhere else, and in August somewhere else, and in December somewhere else.
Yeah. You've got a great musical director as well behind So Amazing, the production.
Yes, I'm very pleased. Tsepo Mngomona approached him about the show to say he must be a music director. He's a very well-respected violinist and a music director. He was more excited than me. He was like, what? I've never had a chance. I can see how I'm going to score it and just write. So we ended up having a quartet over and above the band, and quite a number of artists that we worked with. Great band, amazing band that I work with, and vocalists. And this year we have 2 surprise guests that will be coming in to do 1 or 2 songs with me, and I cannot wait to see the response.
Wonderful stuff. I mean, listen, I can almost understand the glee in Tsepo Ngoma's heart, because he's so used to all the classical compositions.
Absolutely.
And, all these things that are so restrictive in sort of their presentation.
Yes,
a lot of appreciators of classical music are probably going to write to me and say, excuse me, Bridget. So this for him is like being let loose to just reimagine a world that he doesn't ordinarily live in Monday to Friday.
Yeah. He couldn't wait. He was like, oh, I can see how I'm going to score Always and Forever, and so amazing. Oh, how about Superstar? wait a minute, 2 days ago he phoned me and he sent me some clips of him scoring Never Too Much and a couple of other tracks, and it's sounding so amazing. It sounds like a big orchestra.
Wow.
And it's I couldn't be so happy to have him on board.
Wonderful stuff. Let's talk tickets. Where are folks going to get the tickets? Obviously, Joburg Theatre is always one portal, but are they also available elsewhere?
Yes, you call Joburg Theatre, and I would like to remind people, box office is now open. There are 250, very little. Come on the 14th or the 15th. Don't wait for last minute. Book early. And who knows, we might even add an extra show, but I'm not saying that yet. Web tickets, any Pick and Pay around the country, or it's Joburg Theatre, joburgtheatre.com. They can find their ticket. Yes.
Joel Zuma, thank you so much for the quick chat. That was Joel Zuma. He's got a spectacular voice. He was in studio with us last year, and we got a sampling of those vocals. It's definitely a night worth going out, dress up, grab a little bit of a dinner, take your loved one, or as you heard from Joel, bring a girlfriend along, a friend, a guy friend, and go have a good old time. So Amazing is the name of the show, and it's making its comeback to the Joburg Theatre on the 14th and the 15th of February, and those tickets are available via the box office, direct from Joburg Theatre for 250 Rand, or of course you can utilize web tickets as well if you would so prefer. That is it from us this afternoon. We're wrapping a few minutes early to make way for Dineo to bring you the news. And then we're anticipating that, of course, communication coming through from the Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, who should be announcing the cut to the repo rate. A lot of the conversation is around a 25% point basis cut for us as we start off the year. And then also a lot of financial analysts who are keeping a keen eye on this conversation have been alluding to the fact that end of March at the next announcement we should get another 25% point basis, and then that should be us for 2025. And a lot of them also highlighting the fact that the responsibility is on us as South African consumers to ensure that we don't abuse this little bit of reprieve that we've got from the governor and just still thread quite cautiously around our household finances. We will see you tomorrow as we wrap up the week that was. Ashraf Gada standing by with his team. They'll be here immediately after Governor Lesetja Kganyago's announcement. For now, though, Dineo is standing by with the news. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories: Reserve Bank expected to cut repo rate and 30 bodies recovered after Washington plane crash. A very good afternoon. The South African Reserve Bank will announce its repo rate decision shortly, with economists expecting a 25 basis point cut to 7.5%. This could ease borrowing for first-time property buyers, reducing monthly bond repayments. The prime lending rate is at 11.25%. In other news, Johannesburg Water will undergo a planned maintenance at the Hector Norris pump station from tomorrow until next Monday. The water utility says this is aimed at improving infrastructure for sustainable water supply. The affected areas include the Johannesburg CBD, Newtown, Chippistown, Doornfontein and Melville. Johannesburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala is urging residents to use water sparingly.
Residents will be impacted by low pressure to no water for the duration of the maintenance. While alternative water supply will be provided, residents are also urged to store water in preparation.
Moving to the Western Cape, the city of Cape Town has received another successive clean audit in the latest annual report for 2023-24 from the Auditor General. In a statement, Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says achieving a clean audit takes effort and discipline. The report further notes that Cape Town was the top-ranked metro in both the Municipal Financial Sustainability Index 2024 as well as the Governance Performance Index 2024. The National Assembly will hold a snap debate on the killing of 13 SANDF soldiers as well as the situation in the DRC. The National Assembly Programming Committee has agreed that this is an important topic for Parliament to deal with. Some parties are pushing for it to be held as soon as possible, considering the severity of the situation. National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza has given her assurance the debate will be scheduled shortly.
In that regard, I also want to acknowledge that two parties has made a request for a snap debate to deliberate on this matter. And I've responded to them, and I just want to say to this meeting, we are considering that matter and also the possible dates at which the debate must take place.
Lastly, further afield, rescuers in Washington have been working through the night trying to find survivors in the Potomac River after a passenger plane collided in mid-air with a U.S. Army helicopter. So far, 30 bodies have been recovered. There were 64 people on board the American Airlines flight. 3 soldiers were on the helicopter, which was on a training flight. The chief executive of American Airlines, Robert Isom, in a video released by the company, described the airline's response.
This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders, along with their families and loved ones. We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events.
Recapping the top story this hour, the South African Reserve Bank will announce its repo rate decision shortly, with economists expecting a 25 basis point cut to 7.5%. For SAFM News, I am Dinomo Daung. The next update is at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Orlando Pirates eyeing club history in Soweto Derby, and US Open expands to 15-day tournament in 2025. More details at 3:30.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
SABC CSI, in partnership with SAFM, will be giving away 20 laptops to Titlanyo Secondary School in Kimberley on the 31st of January 2025. Titlanyo Secondary School has been nominated by the SABC to receive 20 laptops after writing a donation request to enhance their ambitions to be 4IR compliant and increase the number of learners ready to participate fully and productively in the country's economy. Tune in to SAFM on the 31st of January and listen to The Talking Point, broadcasting live from the Titlanyo Secondary School. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
A warm welcome to you, the National Pulse. We'll talk about the DRC and Rwanda in South Africa just now. But first things first, let's cross to the South African Reserve Bank. The governor of the Reserve Bank is Lesetja Kganyago, and he's announcing the bank's Monetary Policy Committee's decision on interest rates. He's addressing the nation right now.
The economy has been decelerating, with very low inflation and a marked decline in interest rates. In these circumstances, the US dollar has appreciated strongly and, according to some measures, has reached an all-time high. Turning to South Africa, the economy contracted in the third quarter. This is mostly due to an unusually large drop in agricultural production, which has limited implications for how we interpret the economy's underlying growth trend. For the fourth quarter, we anticipate a rebound. This will be supported by more normal agricultural production as well as strong household spending, given tailwinds including lower inflation and 2 pot pension withdrawals. We think this expected rebound in growth will close the output gap, leaving the economy to operate in line with its potential from the current quarter onwards. We expect potential growth to trend higher over the next few years. This gets growth to about 2% by 2027. Looking at the composition of output since the onset of COVID, mining and manufacturing have underperformed, with output still below pre-pandemic levels. It is only due to growth in